All right, kids, how are we doing today? So this is going to be a fun one. It's going to be a little different. I'm probably not going to film a bunch of different cutting or a bunch of me cutting. What we're doing today is this is my personal beef I'm putting in the cooler. This was Nubs. If you followed the channel for a while, you've seen him walking around. So we are going to be putting him in the freezer today. He has hung for about 10 days. We put him in the cooler right before we left for SRF. Didn't feel comfortable hanging customers' beef in the cooler while I was gone. I know the system is fantastic and I wasn't going to have any issues, but still didn't want to risk it. So we put Nubs in, which was good because I was trying to find time to do it. So what we're going to do today is I am going to show you what cuts I put in my cooler. Again, most of them are going to be very similar to a normal cut sheet. But others, again, are cuts that people wouldn't think about getting or just don't have. They're not going to go to a butcher and say, hey, cut this, because more than likely they probably won't. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of just go through what I do for my family to put in the freezer. There will be some stuff that I'll put the camera back on and show me actually cutting, but more than likely what I'm going to end up doing is kind of just breaking down the primals, getting all the cuts done, and then just kind of talking about it at the end. So we'll start with it just hanging as is. Obviously, this is a hind quarter. If you've seen any of my content before, I kind of go over this. So for those who haven't, this is a beef hind quarter. So what we're going to get out of this is obviously first the oxtail, because it is freaking delicious and underutilized. When we get to the flap, which is this section right here, we're obviously going to take the bavette off, or the flat meat, turn that to steak tips. We'll keep the flank as well. I'm a boneless steak guy. I think I don't know. There is an argument that adds more flavor. When you're cooking a bone-in ribeye, you're not cooking it long enough to impart as much flavors that you need to. Same with the porterhouse and T-bones. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to do fillet steaks and strip steaks just because that's what we eat. It's just a little bit easier. We're going to move up. We're going to get into the sirloin. We're just going to do regular 1 1/4 sirloin steaks. That's where things start to get interesting. Once we get into the round, we're obviously going to keep the tri-tip. We're going to take that as a roast. The round tip, again, a lot of people will take that, turn it into steak tips. Sometimes it's not as tender as the flat meat, but if you're trying to get more steak tips out of your animal, it's a good spot to get them. You've seen me cut tip steaks out of it. What I'm going to do is I will be doing stir fry out of it. We eat a lot of stir fry. I got 2 little kids. It's super easy to pull a pound out of the freezer, pound or 2, and toss it right in the fry pan. You're good to go. Top round. What I love to do with top round is I completely denude it, take the cap off and everything, and I actually cut them about 1/8 of an inch, and I will get them all set in packages to do chicken fried steak with. Absolutely delicious. Perfect cut of meat for that. Bottom round, going in the grind. I don't play with that. If you were looking for more oven roasts or something like that, bottom round is a okay roast for something like that. Not my favorite. Kind of is what it is. And as well, more than likely that will end up in grind. You can cut minutes out of it. It makes a sandwich steak, like if you're doing cheese steaks or something like that. And then at the very end, we are going to take the shank and cut crosscuts out of it because I love ossobuco. So what I'm going to go ahead and do, we're going to go ahead and break this down. I will probably pop you in for when I am breaking down the top round just to see how I do that. You guys have seen me break down a round tip before, and more than likely you're going to see it again. because I am also in the middle of filming a separate tying video that we're going to do some roasts out of the round tip that will inevitably end up as stir fry. So we will go ahead and see you guys when we are on the top round. So until then, we'll see you in a second. All right, so working on this hind quarter, we're working on the top round. I realize that I haven't probably cut fry steaks like this before. You guys have seen me cut minute steaks, so you're familiar with the how to do it. But I wanted to show you on a top round. So what I'm doing here is I'm just prepping nice, easy cuts that I can pull out of the cooler, pound them out a little bit with a rubber mallet, and bread them and fry them. So what we're going to do is we're going to trim up this top round as usual and basically get it to where we would cut steaks off of it. And then we're going to continue and completely denude it. And for those of you who don't know what denude means, because I know I've said it about 3 times in this video, it essentially means getting all of the fat off. All the fat, all the sinew, everything that's on it. And again, I'm not too worried about over trimming. It's all going in the grind, and it's all going in my freezer. There's a nice fun feeling you get when it's your own meat going in the freezer. Because once again, I do this pretty much every day. So when I actually get to play around and do my own cuts, it's kind of fun. So now we're going to reach in here, grab where this cap starts, and we're just going to start peeling this back and pull all this fat off. If you wanted to, you could leave the fat on. I just choose not to. I think you end up with a better product. Words are hard today, folks. A better product in the long run, in my eyes, if you take the fat off. And again, as you can see, I'm not trimming much off this. It's kind of all going in the grind. I like my burger a little fatty, so I spent all that money putting corn into this thing to put that fat on. You better believe I'm gonna keep that fat in there. So now what we're left with is completely clean top round. So what else we're going to do, you can see that separation right there. So we're going to go ahead and separate that out as well. I'll save that. We might make some more steaks out of that as well. All right. So now that it's all cleaned up, what I'm going to do, get some butcher paper, and we're just going to lay that right there. So we're going to square the end of this. And all we're doing, we're going to get a nice sharp knife because we're going to be cutting some real thin slices. What we're going to do is we're essentially cutting like minute steaks. Very thin. Again, we're right at the beginning, so they're going to be a little bit smaller. But as we obviously continue into the whole thing, we'll get some bigger steaks. And again, the nice thing is they're already very thin. You can see how kind of tender it is. And what I like to do is when I pull them out, we'll let them thaw. If they're in a cryovac bag, they thaw super quick because they're so thin. And I'll usually just put them in between 2 Ziploc bags and pound them out. Make them even thinner, break up some of that tissue a little bit more. I usually do these packages right around a pound. So that's a package. So I'm going to go ahead. I'll probably zoom through this. we'll finish cutting these, and I'll show you guys the finished product. And at the end of that, once I'm done with the rest of the round, I'm going to lay it all out, and we will move on to the next cuts. I'm going to do the whole beef, but once again, I'm just going to kind of show you the primal, or show you the whole primal, talk about what I'm getting, and kind of pop in at the end and show you what we're working with. All right, so all those are cut. We got 7 really nice packages. Again, you could probably break this into even more packages if you want, but that's about the size I like. I love these size ones because they just kind of turn into steak chips, and they are freaking delicious. All right, so what I'm going to do, I still got the iron bottom and the cross cuts, so we're going to go ahead and break all that down. And the next time you see me, I'll have all this laid out, and we're going to chat about it real quick. So we'll see you guys in a second. All right, so here's what we got out of this hind quarter. I have everything laid out. Obviously, we have a decent amount of grind. We eat a lot of burger at the house, so I'm not shy about grinding stuff. So we'll start over at this back corner. This is all of the stir fry. Again, these are the sizes ranging from that. They're all around similar size. That way I can pull a pound out, season them, do whatever you need to do, toss it in the pan. Our strip steaks, I cut them about 1.5 inches. Oxtail is fantastic in the crock pot, Dutch oven, stuff like that. All of our fillets. I saved the flank steak. Super good for tacos or just on the grill by itself. Let's get that actually in frame. Good job, Kyle. Steak tips. So this is a combination of, we have our steak tips from our flat meat. Got the tenderloin tail in there. And then this is from the cap of the sirloin after we were done cutting that. So these are New York sirloin steaks. These came out really nice. I do like to save the tri-tip. It's good on the smoker. It's good just on a cast iron in the oven. We have our cross cuts, or ossobuco. These are fantastic in the crock pot. Fantastic. Just slow cooked. We do save bones to make beef stock and things like that with. So awesome. So I'm going to go ahead, get everything back on the tray, and I will pull out the chuck, and we'll go over that one real quick. All right, kids. So now we're on the forequarter. So as we all remember, and if you haven't been here before, let me explain it. Off the forequarter, we're getting the chuck, the shoulder, the brisket, and the small rack of the short ribs. So I am a pot roast guy. I love pot roasts. So what we're going to do, I'm going to get at least 3, possibly 4 roasts out of the chuck, boneless. Really easy to just pull out of the freezer, toss it into the crock pot. Out of the arm, we're just going to grind it. I'm not a stew guy. I was actually, I had a fun conversation with Jason from Kentucky Sustainable Living this weekend at SRF, and we were joking about cut sheets and what we get. He was talking about he will never cook a pot roast again in his house because that's all his mom cooked. Twice a week was pot roast, and he won't do it. Mine was stew. My mom cooks stew constantly. And at this point in my life, I don't ever have to have beef stew again. I really don't. So we're going to go ahead, toss that in the grind. We'll see if we get more cross cuts out of the shank. I'm not sure. I might just go ahead and grind them for more burger. We're going to split the brisket. So we're going to get a point and flat. That way I can, again, expand how long or how many meals I can get out of that. And then we are just going to go ahead and grind this rack of short ribs. I'm not feeling short ribs this time around. We had some on the last beef we did, and they were good. It depends on how these look. I might end up keeping them, but I know on the main rib, I am going to be experimenting with some beef bacon. So we're gonna play around with some stuff because, again, I have the ability to because it's my beef. So that's kind of the whole point of this video. So I'm gonna go ahead and start breaking this down. Again, this is, if you've been watching the channel for a while, this is nothing crazy that you haven't seen me do before. And if you haven't watched this, please go back, look at some of my other, I think I have 2 different forequarter breakdowns as well as whole beef breakdowns. So you'll be able to see some of that. So this is more just kind of a, what does a butcher put in his freezer? One of the things we're going to be doing coming up is I'm going to be breaking down my cut sheets. I'm going to basically talk about how to fill out a cut sheet to make it easy on you, to make it easy on the producer you're buying from, or if it's your own animal, easy on the butcher. There's a little dirty secret about cut sheets that no one wants to talk about. They're not made for customers. I have not seen a single cut sheet in my time of being a butcher that was made for customers. My cut sheet personally is made for me to fill out talking to a customer. And it makes it easy for me to be able to know what I'm cutting. So we're gonna kind of break the secrets and talk about a bunch of it. So look forward to that coming up. This one is just kind of fun. It's all the stuff that, again, most people wouldn't be able to get and that I don't get the cut. So we're going to go ahead and keep going with it. So we'll see you guys in a second. All right. So this is what we got broken down out of the forequarter. Again, decent amount of it got ground. I didn't end up saving any of the cross cuts out of the arm. Cross cuts are awesome and I love them. But it is one of those things that does get stuck in the freezer of, all right, I guess I'm not going to cook those tonight. And then all of a sudden it's a year later and you're staring at crosscuts. So we have, I think, 5 out of that last one, and that'll be good for us for a little while. So first off, we got bones. Saved most of the bones out of the arm and also the neck. As you can see, didn't trim too much of these. These make the best soup stock. So again, if you can look at it and go, man, that's so wasteful. There's so much meat still left on that bone. Depending on how you look at it, absolutely. That could go into burger. You could have more ground beef. Looking at this entire neck, there is maybe 1/4 pound of meat left on here that I am not going to kill myself digging out. And it'll give my beef stock amazing flavor. So guess what? I ain't worried about it. Next up, we got our chuck roasts. We got 3 chuck roasts. These ones are out of the chuck primal itself. They came out amazing. This beef, he was about 19 months old. He had basically a free range, like open pasture. The last 6 months, or probably 5 months of his life, he had a 6-acre pasture all to himself with as much grass as he wanted. I didn't really supplement with much hay because he was pretty good. And he got about 6 to 7 pounds of corn a night, corn and grain, protein grain a night. Again, there are people out there that were probably like, oh man, that wasn't ready to go in. Honestly, if I had the money to grain him anymore, I would have, but I honestly didn't. For where we are financially, I did what I could, and I'm very happy with the fat content. It's not insanely marbled, but you know what? That's all right. This is the roast out of the neck. This one's a little bit longer just because of the size of it. We also saved the chuck eyes, my personal favorite part. So these come out of, let's see if I can do this correctly, this side of the chuck. So if you were looking at the whole animal and it was hanging, this would be the part that was exposed. this would connect to the ribeye. So I have praised the words of chuck eye before. They are absolutely delicious. They are essentially a ribeye with a chuck price tag. These are absolutely delicious, so I definitely made sure to save those. I also saved flat irons. These come out of the blade. These are an extremely tender cut of meat that come out of the blade. So grab these two. And then last but not least, we have the brisket. Again, not the fattiest brisket in the world, but also I don't want a super fatty brisket. There's still just enough fat on there that this thing is going to be delicious. This is the point cut, obviously because it has the decal still on. And this is your flat cut. Pretty self-explanatory on the name there. So, up next, I'm going to be bringing the rib out, so we will see you guys in a second. All right, last but not least, we have the crowd favorite, rib plate. So, we're going to get a little funky with this one. We're going to do the usual. I'm going to pop both skirts out. I like to keep both skirts. I am going to do a rib roast for Christmas, and we'll get some steaks out of it as well. But what I am also going to be doing, we are not going to do short ribs off this guy. What I am going to do is we are first going to break the belly off, trim that up, check out how it looks, and we're going to keep that as a flat section to brine for beef bacon. And what I'm also going to do is take the meat off of the ribs and roll them and tie them to do another kind of variation on beef bacon. I have no idea how it's going to work, but guess what? It's my beef, and I get to play with it, so we're going to try it out. So we're going to go ahead, get this off the hook, get it on the bench, and get it cut up. And more than likely, I will bring you guys back when I am dealing with the beef bacon. So we'll go ahead and see you guys in a second. All right, kids, now things start to get interesting. So we got the rib all done. I have this part of the belly exposed. What we're going to do is pop these ribs off. I think, honestly, what I'm going to do is we're just going to separate this. And we'll trim this up in a second to make that look pretty. Again, I've never done this before, but these are the fun kind of experiments I get to do when it's actually my beef I'm cutting. So what I'm going to do is we're going to cut that rib off because there's not much meat on it. And we're just going to be able to square it off. So this could be a major success or a major failure. I mean, I don't really see how it's going to be a failure. The worst that could happen is it's chewy bacon. So we're going to see. And I ran out of bacon from our pig last year a long time ago. So I am pretty excited to get bacon back on the menu. Normally, if I was taking all the meat off the bone for the ribs, what I would do is go in between every rib individually and score it, but I don't want to put too many cuts and gouges into this belly, or into the words are hard today, into the meat on this. So we're just gonna continue to shave this down. Now my thought on this is, because this isn't a very big chunk of meat coming off this, my thought is to possibly roll it and tie it. So it would just be easier to smoke because it's all tied together, and you'd get a bigger chunk out of it. So you'd almost end up with like a beef bacon patty or a beef bacon slice like bologna. I know there's a cured meat that I'm missing. That is essentially that. It's like porchetta. Yeah, that's what it is. It's porchetta. Where they take the pork belly and they roll it and then do the curing process. All right, I'm going to toss that right there for now because we are going to use that. Get all the meat out of there. All right, so there's our belly. What I'm going to do is we are going to square it up. Do that. That yucky part. It's not yucky, it's just dark. Kind of just clean it up a little bit. So, I mean, if you look at it, it's decent looking meat. I'm just trying to think of how I want to. I mean, right there isn't bad. That doesn't look great on camera. Oh, look at that. All right, so I think that's how we're going to do it. I think there's a decent sized air pocket there that I don't love. So we're just going to do that. So, well, that kind of shows you. So that's what it would look like inside. So we're just going to grind this part. Again, this could work out fantastic, or it could be an interesting experiment. So I'm going to go ahead and tie this real quick and get it on the tray. All right. So there's that experiment. We'll see how this goes. I'm actually pretty excited to see how this works out. So now that's tied up real nice. We'll go ahead and toss it in the freezer. I don't know when I will get to it, but we will get to it. And then we also have this piece over here, which is the actual belly. So let's kind of pretty this up a little bit and see what we can work with here. Excuse me. So this, I'm just going to square up. Make that look pretty. So you can kind of see there, that looks like bacon or something similar. So we'll go ahead and toss that. And we're just going to grind all this. And again, I'm not trimming much off of this, guys. I paid the money to put the fat on. I'm going to get as much as I can out of it. Obviously, I don't want it overly fatty or overly sinewy. So we'll go ahead and do that on those super big chunks. So let's move that out of the way and show you what we got. So out of the rib, got a nice rib roast. This is going to be for Christmas dinner. You can see the eye on that. Absolutely love it. I saved both skirts, the normal skirt that people save, which is the top skirt, and then I like saving the inside skirt as well. It's a little bit of a bigger piece. It's more similar to flat meat and consistent than it is to the skirt, but I enjoy it. And then for rib steaks, I actually cut these about 1/2 inch. So I had some breakfast steaks to cook up in the morning. That way I can pull one out, thaws out quick, and good to go on the grill. Good to go in the pan. So, and then we have our beef bacon experiments. So again, here's a small little section that is the belly, and then we have our major experiment. I am so excited to see how this turns out. There will obviously be a video on this at some point whenever I find a moment to breathe. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, I enjoyed it. I don't get to do experiments much because obviously the majority of the meat I'm cutting is for customers that do not have a problem with me filming their product, which is fantastic for me. But it's always nice to kind of break out of the pen and be able to do something a little funky. So once again, go ahead and pay attention to the channel. We're going to be doing some cool and fun things. There's a bit of a fire under my ass from getting that SRF, and we are going to blow this channel up. That cut sheet series, I think, is going to be really fun. We'll be doing beef, pork, probably lamb. I got some lambs coming in. Definitely venison, and wild game will probably just kind of all be in one, because that is very similar. So stay tuned. We got some cool stuff coming up. So I appreciate you guys watching.